Yeah, great.
Hey everybody, Natan here. I'm here with an old friend of mine, Ed. We've chatted a few times before and we're coming back for another Friday Fireside Chat. Today we're keeping it loose and limber, but we really had a couple interesting points that we're talking about from across the pond and different sides of the world, from different modalities of therapy, from vastly different experiences, and everything from experience to education to expertise. Ed and I come from different worlds, but met somewhere in this third world in the middle, which is very interesting. We have a common martial art background, and as therapists and people that are healers and just want to do the best we can and make our clients feel better, that's where we're coming to this conversation today. So we welcome you to join us to our Fireside Chat. Hey Ed, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much for the invite, and who knows what will happen over the next 10-15 minutes. Great. Brilliant. Where would you like to take this, and what's on your mind, Natan?
You and I were speaking before about the differences in, I guess the differences in both traditional and non-traditional medicines, and the lack of integration, the lack of holistic mentality amongst all of modalities. And that if we could put something together where we could mix the old and mix the new and mix everything together just to ultimately find the goal of whatever works is the one that wins. And that's got to be the way that we guide ourselves without ego.
Yeah, okay, great. So my approach for this is quite simple. Anything that doesn't leave a mark permanently gives you a great strength of character to try it out in the first place. That without that assurance, where do you go? Okay, everything is hamstrung to very particular railroads if you leave a mark where you've been. And this is the bonding, I would say, between the traditional medicine that generally has to feel its way in the dark because modern diagnoses were not available. And therefore it has to be able to manipulate the problem without doing too much damage in its wake. So therefore you can relax, which means you've got infinitely more avenues to choose from initially. And I think that's a very powerful aspect that perhaps doesn't get spoken about. Is it the same, would you say, from your perspective?
I found that it's incredibly powerful that way. And it changes all the time with every single person we work with. It's a completely different set, even though the similarities are mind-boggling. If we're going to have a day on Tuesday and just say everybody who's got one arm and wears a yellow shirt and a blue hat sideways come only on Tuesdays, and we wouldn't think anyone would show up, the lineup is going to be around the block. You know what I mean? And if we do anything other than draw anecdotal evidence from that, it's going to be damaging, because no matter how long that lineup is, that's a lineup of these people at this time in this place with this thing. That is not all people in all times in all places with all things. You can't do it. There is no magic bullet. There's no secret pill or formula or any of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that from my experience reading the medical texts that I have, I think it is only an opinion. So what's really fascinated me is that the idea, once you get stuck in there and you use a bit of deductive science for that individual on that day, and working with people and seeing the whites of the eyes, as I was put it to people, you can start to engage. And certainly with your skill background, I think probably a lot better than I am with this, is actually you can see where people take the hook. Certainly with the hypnosis background, I would argue perfectly. And you can then start to guide people through this labyrinth of their health.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you mention it with the hypnosis, you would think it would be rather logical. You would think that if you give somebody certain suggestions and walk them through certain stages and they're still along, their eyes are still closed, they're still breathing relaxedly, you're thinking everything's great, they could be sleeping. So have to test all the time. How deep, how low, how fixed, how trance, what do you see, what do you smell, what's going on right now? Because as much as they could go to the left and fall asleep, they could also go to the right and get completely distracted. So now all of a sudden I'm like, I need you to picture an apple, and you go, okay, and you're like working on it. Oh, I did, I pictured an apple. Wait a minute, now I'm in an apple orchard. Oh, This is incredible. When I was 4 years old, and then I saw a dead body, and now all of a sudden a traumatic event happens. And I'm just telling the person, relax, count to 3, take a deep breath, and all of a sudden they start screaming. So you gotta, you know what I mean? Before you get into things, that would be called an abreaction. And a famous one of that would be Homer Simpson in The Simpsons. He gets hypnotized and he can't stop screaming. But he doesn't know what that memory is. So he's having a traumatic event, but nobody else gets to know about it. So,
wow.
And even then, and that's extreme hypnosis, where very rarely something like that happens, but we have extreme emergency measures and techniques for that. The same way that I remember, I think I might have told you about it. I was at Cirque du Soleil doing some consultation work there, and they had a trapeze that was about 80 feet off the ground, and it was a concrete floor. And so there's a belt and a pulley, and there's a guy standing on the bottom. And there was this girl, she's about 18, about 90 pounds soaking wet, maybe, just this teeny little thing. And she was up there and she was practicing this crazy skill thing. And his job is to yank and pull so that she doesn't fall and die. And I don't know if he got distracted and was looking somewhere else or something like that, but she did it, and it slipped, and she hit the ground 80 feet below. So that could have and should have, in most people's cases, either killed them or at least, permanently disabled them in some way. With her, she was very badly bruised, but okay, and conscious, and just learned how to loosen, relax. Jesus, take the wheel. And that's what she did all the way down. And when she hit, she was okay. 8 months later, she recovered and got over it. We did some mental work so that she could get over, talk about a fear, right? You know what I mean? If you screwed up and you fell off the bar and you're the culprit in your own demise, you're going to have a hard time trusting you. But if you didn't do nothing wrong and somebody else lets you slip, you're going to have a hard time trusting somebody else. No different.
Absolutely.
Hard time trusting is a hard time trusting. It doesn't matter who you point that gun at. It's a gun. So when we went up, and I you can't make this stuff up. 8 months later, she got fixed, she got healed, she got mentally and physically great. She goes back up. Same guy. I don't know how he didn't get fired. Same guy's watching her. Again, the exact same thing. He doesn't, and she falls.
No.
And she hits the ground again. And this time does get hurt.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was absolutely awful. You know what I mean? And so you come to those kind of horrible situations and you don't know what to do. And it's different in retrospect because I was on the scene. So there's a couple physiotherapists and a couple emergency EMT medical technicians and stuff. But before they could get to her, I was there. And my job was to try to do emergency hypnosis, the same stuff when people are screaming and you don't know why. Well, they're screaming now and they're not under hypnosis. They're not having a bad memory. They're having a current bad situation. They're currently building a bad memory as we speak. And the ability to jump in and do an intense body visualization or an escape visualization where we get them out and convince them that there's something else, doing something else, somewhere else, and they don't notice it. It's not just for acute pain management. It's not just to be able to get them to calm down, which is the healthiest thing you can do instead of freak out and pass out and on and on and on. It's so that when the therapist came and they needed to do the assessment, they could. Because you can't move somebody around that's freshly injured, but you need to. If I don't know your range of motion, how do I know what's going on? How can I diagnose or assess any of this? But meanwhile, you're freaking out. And I can't tell if you're freaking out because I'm moving you, because I'm doing the assessment, or if you're freaking out because you just fell 9 stories twice in a year and are still here awake. So it's difficult to be able to get into that kind of intensity, like you go through such an incredible experience. And I was able to go through it a couple times, and the therapist who came over couldn't believe it. In his mind, he was like, all right, I don't know what, cute words you're whispering in her ear or whatever you think is going to work and stuff, but, move aside, the big boys are here and we actually have some work to do. And I'm like, I'm here to help relax her pain so that you can do your work. Let me take her mind somewhere else. Do you need her? Do you need any questions? Any things you need from her? No? Then let me do the talking to her head part. You guys worry below the neck. Deal? And we did. And I stayed above her head and I took her away, like away. And they were able to do full manipulation. And afterwards, they took me aside and said, we've never been able to do that on a freshly
Mm,
injured person, ever.
absolutely.
They were in so much agony and in so much stress that even if they weren't, on a scale of 1 to 10, they could have been at a 2 out of pain. But they're freaking out emotionally makes that 2 a 10. You're
Oh yeah.
hyper focused on that mosquito bite, that you're like, driving me crazy. I can't sleep. I can't. I'm like, it's a mosquito bite. Imagine if you lost your leg. Like, but you can't put it into context. That 2 becomes a 10 very quickly if you just keep focusing that attention.
Absolutely. Well, the shock is what does the damage, isn't it? I mean, that's going to stop your heart pretty much dead. And if you can prevent the shock, you can really start to get people into a much better place. I tend to deal with that situation much more of a mundane basis, if I can put it this way. To people who come into the clinic and they've been told for I don't know how many years, many years by repeated professionals, Mrs. Jones, I'm sorry, we can't help you unless you go through surgery, unless you go through this advanced procedure. And my job within the clinic is to actually break these barriers down and say, well, actually, have you been told about any of these other options? And quite openly with people, they might not cure you in one go, but actually, together, the sum of the parts is much greater. So it's similar because people have this preconception, and you have to be able to capture their imagination and take them on a bit of a story.
One thing, you know what I mean? There's no one technique that's gonna. I came to you with a back that's injured from 20 years ago or from 20 minutes ago. It doesn't matter. There's no one thing that that, and you know what I mean? Like even if it was misplaced and you could just do an adjustment and put me back into place, I'm not convinced it'll stay in. I'm not convinced that the muscles around will not have a huge trauma that's going to be a big puffy son of a bitch for at least days, if not weeks afterwards. So there's so much that needs to be done no matter what goes on. That's why it's so impressive the work that you do in finding out where is this coming from, how to deal with this, and knowing that it's never going to be one technique. Not because it's not just one technique for the situation, it's not one technique for the damn person. Everybody's different. So even if you got to have somebody do this, you can't tell them, sir, please do this, because that guy doesn't like to be called sir. He doesn't want you to, he wants you to tell him. And that lady says, no, I need you to be kinder and softer. Can you ask me in a questioning way? And you have to be a people thing as much as a skill thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a big one. It's a big one. I noticed it. That's why in your world, you've got dozens of techniques and ways that you can help play the person, the situation, the moment, the need now. You know what I mean? And it's your skills.
Absolutely.
That's so cool, Ed. That's one of the things that make you stand out in that, very much so.
Well, that's why I'm quite keen, really, to get started with our conjoined work, because I know that there are areas that I think you do far better than I do in terms of the way in which you can create a mental picture with individuals. I've seen it myself with the webinars that you've done, and it's great. This is only the beginning, and it's about trying to rebuild people's mental assurances that they have control back. Once you've got that groundwork done, from my experience in the clinic, you can start to show them a couple of tidbits of things that they can do that really actually make them turn that corner mentally and perhaps 5% physically. Then immediately the ground's yours. The rest of it will happen in good time. And it's once you've got that captured, and it's not about conning people, it's not about actually confusing people.
It's about understanding it at another level. So if I share a secret with you, I don't believe that it's the same for physical, and obviously you're my expert on this, so you correct me if I'm wrong. The techniques are not interchangeable. If I do this back exercise, it is not the same, and it is not hitting the same muscle groups, and it is not for the same purpose as if I did this exercise. And if I was trying to do this to get to this result, and I did quote unquote a different or the wrong exercise for it, there's no way I could magically through the back door have the same result. Yet in my world, you can. I got a dozen different mental, physical, and emotional drills, and I interchange them. And it's nuts because one of them is called like a mental scream drill, and it's entirely for anxiety. But yet, if I do the mental scream drill and I have no anxiety, I could use it for depression. I could use it for everything on the dark, negative side down all the way up to the high side. Like, hey, I'm feeling really super. I'm way too hyper. Oh my God, what do I do? Do the mental scream drill. You're like, yeah, but I don't feel anxiety. You're like, well, you know what? It was made for this, but its spin-offs are insane, and it has effects and benefits on this. One of the physical exercises is the centering drill, where you're catching your physical center. That shouldn't be an emotional release. I've had people cry at the end of that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in my world, I get to cheat a little bit, and it's a secret, because even if I'm not 100% right on the technique, and I think that right now for you, at your situation, at this moment in time, this is the best technique. I'm only human. I mean, it's my best educated guess, but hey, I'm only human. And, degrees and decades of experience, we're fallible no matter what. So if at the moment I was wrong and I picked the wrong technique, it's not the same repercussion in what I do than with what you do. I could be like, my bad, Ed, that didn't work for you. You couldn't smell the flowers. Maybe you can taste the flowers. Maybe you can touch
Sure.
the flowers. Maybe you can see the flowers. And I'll find another way to do it. It won't.
Yeah, well, that's the NLP, isn't it, coming out there? Absolutely.
In your world,
Yeah.
Natan, you know what? Okay, so clearly you have a lower back, area here that's soft and tender. You need to do this exercise, this exercise, this exercise. You give me the wrong exercises. I can't come back and go, Ed, that worked great. And you're like, hold on a sec. Which ones did I give you, Natan? Oh my God, I gave you the wrong ones. Those would never in a million years fix your back. And yet somehow they did. That doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you slightly. Maybe I can convince you on this, because I think genuinely there is the textbook which you referred to, and it over if audio comes back. Have you got me back?
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, in case we were...
Right. Apologies, just cut out for about 10 seconds.
You're good.
Great, lovely. So you've got the textbook, and you've got the average median individual here that it refers to. I've never met this person at all. So what I would say to you is that when you apply a series of stretches, you can actually apply to those stretches pretty much whatever job that you want, if you can capture their mind first. And that's why I think genuinely this is an incredibly powerful tool, because you can get aforementioned Mrs. Jones to get out of her comfort zone, but still feel supported by the people who she's with. And once you can get that trust factor, that genuine investment that you have because you're there to help them in a very altruistic way, and this is what I'm very, very keen to work with you on, because I do get that sense that you're not in this for the cash. It's a matter of genuine what individual, and make that a massive change in their life. And once you get in amongst people's company like this, you can do whatever you want to do. Same as if you're running as a pair, you're both going to do better because you've got that mental support. As a group, much more so than you have as an individual, especially when it's cold and wintry and it's snowing and there's ice on the ground and you don't really want to go, but John's going, so you go. It's the same argument there as well. And that's why I'm quite keen to mention this, because we can obviously give directed stretches, we can teach massage techniques, which are great, and we can target that very accurately because we've got our textbook with our median individual, and this is what the roadmap says that we do. But it's not just about picking up that textbook, it's about applying 10 years of work experience on top of that, but really a lot more, because you've got your angle as well. And what we do is we go, okay, that's the textbook, put that down, and we now hyper focus on the individual to take those stretches, like we said before, with whatever techniques it is, we supercharge that, because suddenly
I think you're on
the sum of the parts is much greater.
Onto something, because if I was to stand up and someone says, okay, bend forward slowly and touch your toes, and if I've got no thought going on other than to keep my balance and not fall forward, I bend forward and touch my toes. I'm purely in my body and I'm feeling. I'm waiting to feel a sensation, and I'm going, I don't know the purpose of this exercise, but I'll feel something, and when I do, that was the point. Okay, and then I stand back up. That is completely different if before you made me do the exact same stretch, you made me visualize every vertebrae and the muscles around, and you made me say, zoom in here. This is the area that you want to feel the pull. The pull will feel like this, like this. It'll pull down here. It'll be over here. Visualize that as you go down. And now bend forward and go. And as you go and as you see it, feel that, hold it. And then, of course, on the physical side, we can concentrate on what are the sensations? What do you need to feel? How long do you need to hold it before we go, okay, end of stretch and back up? But while they're doing it on the mental side, they were already pre-programmed with what it looked like. So the benefit is huge. But while we're there, we can do a healing visualization. So you can turn your eyes on the inside of your body, go through your body, and just shoot out natural healing white light, turning everything a light, healthy pink until whatever the problem is gone. And it's fascinating to ask them, what color do you see when you first see it? So as they go down their lower back and they see it, is it black, green, purple, red? What is it? You know what I mean? And it's funny because no matter whether people know colors or not, whether they're a color therapist, whether they're a person who colors your hair, whether they teach, grade 2 colors and primary colors at school, it means something unique to them. It's like, when I say a little bit of time or a little bit of money, those two things mean radically different things to every human on earth. Nobody has the same meaning on a little bit of time or a little bit of money, period.
Yeah, well, this is it, because like you just said, I'm beset with people who come to see me in clinic, and I'm talking really eye to eye on this basis, but the issue is absolutely the same extrapolated over the wonderful tech that we've now got to rely on. Is they go to the physiotherapist, and the physiotherapist says to Mrs. Jones, she describes where the pain is, and the physiotherapist will go, okay, we're going to do a forward fold, Mrs. Jones. Bend over until you can feel the pain. Immediately, you're setting them a target to feel the pain, aren't you? So from your perspective, you can immediately get across that.
You're looking for that pain. It's like you're anticipating, you're trying to get it. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. Whereas if you can go, and we can perfect this with your help, certainly, I would always say to people, lean forward until you want to stop, or you feel that you can't go any further, or in fact, when you do lean forward, measure how far you're getting. So make a positive change as to where you were a moment ago and measure that, so you've got that in your mind, and then when you're talking to them you can release that and hopefully get them much further. And it's about trying to dispel this away from the focus of the pain that they came in with to, let's improve your mobility, Mrs. Jones. I'd like you to lean forward, and I'd like you to come down with me and guide the individual, and as you guide them you can feel the tightness, and obviously you can see as well the tightness as it builds, and you're not even mentioning the central issue that they came up with, and you gradually tend to release forwards and backwards, really quick and easy to do. Everyone should be doing it, by the way, and it's so simple. But turning this on its head, imagine if somebody comes in and says, well, I'm not eating very well, and I need to get some better diet, and on their dietary analysis, which is a major part of the traditional medicine, is you can see that they're majorly protein deficient. So you go, well, I'd like to get you eating a bit of venison, Mrs. Jones. I'd like you to get eating good quality, wholesome primary foods that are really going to help you rather than processed foods. And they go, oh, I don't know whether I can do that. Well, immediately your help can come in massively, because you can start to alter people's perception of what they think is good food and bad food.
You absolutely need to lay the law and say, this is what needs to be done or nothing will happen. And I need to come in and say, this is how that's going to become palatable.
Absolutely. And then, we can turn this around and we can say, well, actually, from the Chinese traditional diagnostics, we can say that the textbook says that if you've got low back pain, you're probably suffering in your life an emotional, can't even speak anymore, must get some more tea. You're probably suffering an emotional response related to fear. The kidneys are damaged by fear in particular. So then we can develop for that individual, depending on their diagnostics, they might be a bit different. So it might be heart stress, which is joy in your life, or it might be liver stress, which is anger and resentment, building up.
Ask, you know what I mean? You can be like, normally, traditionally, fear is coming from, well, kidneys are representative and a repository for that. So if I was to ask you, where could this fear come from? And you just be quiet. Sometimes they're like, oh, heck, I know exactly where it came from. And you're like, woohoo, it's going to be easy. Other times they're coming to you with a funny sound when my car goes around the corner. Can you tell me what it is and how much it'll cost? And I'm like, no, ma'am, not without lifting the hood and actually taking a look. It's impossible. It's impossible. No matter how well you try to describe that funny sound to me. No, I can't, based on your description, tell you what it is, how much it'll cost, or if I can even fix it. No. So there's some
Absolutely.
expectations that needs to be done so that people come in and don't just go, oh, you know what, this guy's going to tell me what to do and it's up to me to take it or leave it. No. Charge enough money that, you know what, people are going to take it because it made sense, because they're not just flippantly going, hey, this or that. If I pay $10,000 to an expert to go, please tell me what to do, I'm in a crisis situation, I'm going to listen. To be fair, if I was in a crisis situation, I'd listen anyway. You know, if I was lucky enough to get an expert to tell me what the hell to do, I'm going to listen anyway. But of course, I'm paying for it. Like, the doctor gets paid to do the surgery to take the cancer out of you, whether he takes the cancer out of you successfully or not, whether the cancer remits or not, whether it. My job is this. I would love to have you in a happy place, ultimately at the end goal of everybody. But all of this is you. This is my little here part. That's all I get to influence, man. This is it. It's hugely important, and it takes a lot of this off of your shoulders so that you're not the only one doing this by yourself. And for me, as a therapist is one thing, but I do therapy not as much as I do transformational coaching, where I use my mental, physical, emotional tools. They're in my pocket. I use them as I need to, but I do a 6-week program called the Limitless Program. And in it, you have to learn these. There's like, these are internalized. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So if I can teach you the tools of self-hypnosis for yourself, you will then be functional for yourself. You'll have the skill set that you can teach family and friends. You can do it on family and friends. You can do it on emergency situations of people who just fell off an 80-story trapeze if you need to. So you're going to have skills. You know what I mean? It's a completely different, I need you to have this. But then the second part of the program is, well, then we need to go, okay, if that was mental and you learning these mentally, then here's the physical. I need you to get out of your body, out of your mind and into your body. And that's when we do the breathing exercises, the katas, the moving meditations, where we draw heavily on the martial arts for that second session in the week. Last session is Sundays. It's emotional. That's where I lift the hood, roll up my sleeves, and I go into therapy mode, and I do the deep work. So I'm glad that on Tuesday you learned how to do these techniques to yourself. Good for you. I still, as the therapist, need to come in and fix that shit, wherever it is, whatever it is, from whenever it is. And that's why
Absolutely fundamental.
Between the mental, between the physical, between the emotional, between you being accountable because you've got daily track sheets and a success journal that you do every day, there's no running around. There's no escape. You're paying a significant amount of time and a significant amount of money and a significant amount of effort into going from where you were and 6 weeks later to, holy crap, I'm a completely different new person.
Yeah, and of course you're getting the expertise from a very wide berth of different activities. I think that the mental it's at least 75% of the work, from certainly on the online world. People need to be hearing this for a start. They've got to have positivity in their life. They've got to have that capability of making the change. That is absolutely fundamental. Whatever techniques you apply, again, within the traditional medicine, whether it is the dietary analysis, the traditional Chinese medicine, the linkages there between the real causes of the issues deep down, then it's a matter of the mobility work. So you're getting the physio side of it as well. You're getting the idea of looking into your body motion and trying to work out how is your skeletal structure working. Is it simply that you're sleeping badly? And therefore the mental side comes into that as well. You've got then the idea of getting rid of all this historic stuff. So the NLP comes into that as well. And that's massively important, isn't it? I would say that's, from my experience as a patient as well previously, I've had that done, and that is really effective. So I absolutely am with you on that. And nobody's doing this. Nobody is combining all these things together. So why on earth?
Of knowledge that it's insane to house it into even several people, like a committee, a group, a very unique consortium would be phenomenal, because even like
Yeah.
even that you mentioned NLP as a therapist, to be able to look at my patient in the eye and say, when did this first happen, and to watch his
Mm.
movements and to go, he just looked up and to the left, that means he's remembering this. This is a memory. Oh, he looked down and to the right, he's fabricating this. What the heck?
Yes,
Why are you making
that is so true.
Why would you do that? I'm just asking you to remember this. Are you feeling so vulnerable that you need to create a whole new persona just to be like, for me? I'm here with you, man. Don't worry about it. So very, very different. And knowing those things and being those skill sets, it's hard to break out because you came into it before you knew it. Let's take NLP as an example. And once you found out about it, you're like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But at one point, you get to a level of competence in it. And at that point, you decide, is this my religion? Am I going all in? Do I go to the deepest master course conductor level, and become one of the biggest guys in this? Or do I take this as a springboard and then jump to another equivalent or higher experience in a completely different realm? The way that this blew my mind, I wonder if something else could blow my mind. One of the biggest ones, ironically, was Huna, if you're familiar.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The Polynesian religion / spirituality. That is some phenomenal stuff. They talk about how you create in your house of your mind. There's a attic, there's the main living room, and then there's the basement. And how in the basement, in your deep unconscious, where these thoughts are coming out and being mulled and mean, that is a direct result to you trying to fulfill your highest possible desire. And that's coming from the guy in the attic who's just looking out. He doesn't see the ground, he doesn't see the grass or the trees here. He's seeing 10 miles out. So he can't possibly see what's going on right now. And for you,
Wow.
in your attic, you're like, boy, I just want to feel loved. But that doesn't translate to the guy in the basement who's like, and so I'm going to give you the nearest physical equivalent, which is a sensation in your stomach of, that feels good. So I'm going to eat, and now you're going to binge eat to satisfy an emotional need. Well, I got the guy up in the attic looking out there telling me he wants to be loved. I got the guy in the basement misunderstanding it like they're playing telephone with a string and two cans so nobody hears each other. And so this guy's making me eat more. And so here's the guy in the main floor. And he's just watching all this. This is your subconscious. And it is just paying attention to what the hell you pay attention to. And it's taking notes. You thought this stupid thought 17 times today. No judgment. Doesn't pass judgment. That's not its job. It's just a freaking accountant, bean counter, no taker. It's an incredibly factual thing. You can't escape it. It's a scribe of every thought, every feeling, everything that you're going through. And you cannot run out of it. It is legitimized. And it is put out there in black and white all on the table. And it's not telling you about it. So it's talking to the guy up in the attic saying, okay, so why are you feeling this and thinking this? That's weird. Okay, it's talking to the guy in the basement going, so why did you interpret that to be what the hell the nearest physical equivalent is? That's weird. You know what, you guys? I've noticed that for the last 30 days, both of you guys have been focusing on this same thing. Because you've both been focusing on it for at least 30 days, now I'm going to pay attention. The hell are y'all talking about? And if that message is not clear and congruent internally, then now that middle guy in the main living room, he pops up and goes, well, hell, then this must be who we are, what we think, what we believe, what we do. And it's everything. It's what we think, it's what we act. It's changed. And it's just as good as bad. So the same way, if you have some crappy thing in right now, you just reverse engineer that same process I just went through, and boom, 30 days later, you're done. Anybody wants to, obviously you can go and you can study more about it. They're amazing, fascinating things. I mention it briefly in even in my book, the Personal Momentum 30-Day Change for Life program. You can get it on my store. And that'll get into the philosophy, the principles, the theories, the meat and the grind in the heart of it, and it's beautiful stuff. Effectiveness is the measure of truth. Now is the moment of power. There is no power except from within. There's a lot of deep stuff that'll really get you to think and challenge yourself. But at the end of the day, somebody who's an expert in that, you come to a certain level of competence and you go, again, is this my religion? Do I go all in, or is there a piece of it? And so the more you go down those roads, eventually you come to this place that's no longer got 46 different signs. It's just a crossroads. There's now eventually two choices. and that's it. And life ends with just two choices. It boils down to that, you know? So
Absolutely.
I think for a fireside chat, and I've been enjoying my wine. So thank you everyone for joining me on that. We'll probably start a Whiskey Wednesdays. I think that might be appropriate.
Well, we might need some liver support for this because it's going to be a heavy week at this stage, because I can certainly feel Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday as well. So yeah, absolutely. Well, this is it, because this is now, people are spilling out of the mainstream. They are absolutely crying out for these collective integrated skills. I'm working with an orthopedic surgeon, and he is just as aware of that as we are. But perhaps he's lived in this tiny little world, and he's now just starting to peek out like a little meerkat out of his little den. And we need to be grabbing these people, because we can create here, and are creating this conglomerate of people who can work together. So it's not just two guys in a barn just talking. It's actually now, this has to be the future, because we're done, as far as I've been on the receiving end of quite harsh advice medically that was wrong, that through mental changes and being stubborn and a bit pig-headed as I am, was able to change that. And through meeting the right people, it all fell into place. So we can help to build people's self-worth, so they can start then to really then make the changes for themselves in their own lives. That is vital, but supported by real hard rock underpinnings of science, with the support as well of the traditional medicine, which draws its contacts from thousands of years of oral history, in particular as far as the Japanese history is concerned. This needs to get out to the next generation, that this has to be the way forwards. It is not, you go to the GP, you don't get the issues fixed with pain relief, so you go back, you get some physio, your physio looks and goes, right, how far can you lean, Mrs. Jones? And it's in, here's a sheet of stretches. This is the future. So we have to get this out to people. That is our objective.
They can receive it and activate on it. It can't just be academic. We can't just write a book and hope that somebody reads it and then puts page 67 to work, or, even then, like I have free video series that I give to people with exercises and stuff. And it's the same stuff that you'd pay money for. And it's given out for free. And it's still, the amount of people that open it or click on it or do it is so low compared to what you'd think, And then I have a transformational coaching program that's considerably more expensive than free. And everybody clicks on it, and everybody does the homework, and everybody steps to attention and takes it seriously, as I did and I would. And you know what I mean? So you take your own self-education seriously, and you take your own personal information and health seriously. It makes no sense why you wouldn't take yourself as high and as far as you can. So
absolutely, with two people who've done it as well. I mean, I was told that I was at very great risk of losing sensation in my legs and not walking again. You've been at the highest reaches of your athleticism as well, with your martial arts and your free running, the name of which escapes me just very briefly.
Power tumbling.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. There we go. That's a small intestine issue. There's far too much grain in my diet at the moment. There we go. But which I hold my hands up. Actually, I'm going to change that next week. But we'll get there. But yeah, the idea of this integration is really, really vital, that people get this message and that they start to realise that you've got control. Once you realize you've got the power to make the changes, that it is not handed on down high by some individual who has a series of doctorates on the front of their door that won't almost fit on their name plaque. It is a matter of actually genuinely.
And I'm going to impart the wisdom. Here's the magical tomb. Read this and all secrets will be revealed. Stop all of that crap,
Absolutely. It is genuinely, it is. Once people realize they can do this themselves, they don't need one pill, one method. they need then a series of experts who've done this. You've been to high athleticism. I was trained for a 4-minute mile, did a 4:31 3 years ago, which I don't think is too bad for somebody who lost sensation in his legs. So it's something that I think we've done it. And we need to pass this on to the next generation. It's implicit within my teachings, I'm sure it is yours as well, that when you get to a certain level, like the crossroads you described, you need to decide to pass this on to the next generation. Okay, we're two pretty young guys, but there will come a point when we need the next generation to take the mantle. So get involved in your health early. And how much better can we say this? We need people to invest in their health, and I'm really passionate about it. And sorry, it pours out of me, and I apologise about that. My hands go like this. It's just heart expression. That's what it is. So it's people need to. Sorry, I missed that.
I said we're passionate, emotional people. And listen, you guys, for the audience watching, if you want to get in touch with Ed, I'm going to put the contact information for him. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm going to have the contact information for you there below as well. And Ed's a traditional medical background, is plus so many other modalities that it's incredible to get you into a completely different way to look at and think about what's going on in your body right now. And for me, I can assist with a little bit of what's going on in your mind, how we got here, how we can get out of here. If you got the kitchen on fire, we can figure out how to fix that first. If things are casual, we can go take a look and reflect on the past. But whatever the situation is, however you come to us, we would love to work with you. We'd love to help you. Just let us know. You can leave a comment below. You can reach out and DM us directly. Thank you so much, Ed, for joining me. It's an incredible fireside chat. I enjoy them always with you. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's really great. We must keep these series up because there's so many nuances of the information. We have to get this message out. And come and join us.
We might have a third or fourth person and see if we can't get a little bit of a consortium going on. I think that would be fascinating.
Well,
as well.
I can think of a really good orthopedic surgeon. My partner teaches yoga. Where does it stop? This is the web. Once you get involved, you think, oh God, there's so many options. But
tuition coach as well and stuff. So we put some together. We'll have some very interesting conversations. If you guys, as the audience, are interested, leave a comment below. If you like and subscribe and all that other cute YouTube stuff, that's great. Thanks. But leave a comment below so we can tell what it is that you're interested in for the next Fireside Chat. What do you want to hear about? Tell us if this is a good idea. Do you want to get a consortium together? Do you want to be one of our test case subjects? Do you want to put yourself forward? Do you want to talk to us? Let us know what's on your mind. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Natan and my partner, Ed Davies.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.